one other data point I look at is how much of salaries is eating up revenue, because that could make you bid higher when you don't necessarily have to bid higher if you can lower your salaries. Because if those salaries are eating up more than 30% of revenue, then that's a red flag in my book. I like to keep salaries at 30% or
or
below,
less.
and we need to do that so that way we can grow the company steadily, and as it continues to grow, then your salary will grow with it. But some guys, they get a little anxious and a little hungry, and they just want to have, big paydays up front, year one, year two, year five, those type of things, and don't understand that the sacrifice has to be made up front so that way you could enjoy life a little later. But that's something to look at, because if salaries are really heavy, then you have to have really high margins so that way you can cover, your overhead. But salaries is one of the biggest bleeders for a construction company, and you need to kind of find ways to plug that up.
Well, you mentioned one reason, and that's people kind of want a payday and get hungry and start hiring people early. You see any other reasons that salaries are bloated in companies?
That's a big one. What I mean, with just getting hungry, wanting those big paydays.
Well, one thing that I see is there are people who, and this sounds harsh maybe, but there are people who really don't do anything in your company and they've been around a long time and you can't really justify their salary, but you really don't want to terminate them, and that's a tough decision. But you have to cut the waste out of your company, even if that waste winds up being a person.
True, and a lot of times it's hard because it's family, and especially a lot in construction companies, because in construction companies, these guys like to work with people they trust, and who can you trust usually is family. And so I may have my wife doing my bookkeeping. I may have my mother, answering phone calls and doing some filing things away. But at the end of the day, if they're not the best at it and really helping you move the company into the future, then you really need to reevaluate their position and maybe rearrange them around, put them in different seats on the bus, or just say, hey, we gotta hire somebody who's competent and has the skill
Yeah.
set to help us grow, which is going to ultimately help the whole entire family. And so that's kind of what we need to frame up for these owners.